Thank you, Madam President. I have the honor to deliver the statement on behalf of the group of the member states belonging to the Organisation of Islamic Cooperation in our capacity as the chair of the group. Madam President, distinguished members of the Council, at the outset, I'd like to express our sincere appreciation to the Russian Federation for convening this quarterly open debate and for the comprehensive briefings provided to the Security Council on the situation in the Middle East, including the Palestinian question. The just concluded high-level week of the 18th session of the UN General Assembly witnessed a series of promising events and encouraging outcomes in relation to the peaceful resolution of the Palestinian question, including an end to the Israeli military aggression and unprecedented humanitarian disaster and devastation it has caused in Gaza. First, the successful adoption of the New York Declaration on the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the two-state solution, following its overwhelming endorsement at the UN General Assembly on the 12th of September this year, underscored the well-known global support for the existence and independence of the State of Palestine along the borders of 1967. In this regard, we congratulate President Emmanuel Macron of France and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Abdulaziz Al Saud for the co-chairs of the high-level international conference on the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution, on the extensive efforts exerted to convene the conference and advance its urgent and crucial objectives. Second, the official declarations of the recognition of the State of Palestine by the presidents and heads of state of 11 UN member states during the high-level international conference on Palestine held on 22nd September has undoubtedly set the stage for the formal recognition of the State of Palestine. We reiterate the earlier commendation by several OIC member states of this timely recognition of the State of Palestine and the long-standing call by our group for the admission of the State of Palestine to full UN membership. Third, we welcome the efforts of US President Trump and the signing earlier this month of a ceasefire agreement for Gaza, which has brought desperately needed relief to the Palestinian civilian population in Gaza in the face of mass displacement, starvation and famine, and has opened a new vista in the global démarches for a durable peace in the Middle East. We welcome the implementation of the ceasefire and the subsequent release of hostages and prisoners. We also commend the convening of the Sharm el-Sheikh Peace Summit under the co-chairmanship of President Trump of the USA, the President Abdel Fattah of Egypt, aimed at bringing about an end to the war in Gaza, the promotion of a just and lasting stability in Palestine and the Middle East at large, and we welcome President Trump's declaration for enduring peace and prosperity signed by Egypt, Qatar, my country, and the USA. In this regard, we express appreciation for the mediation efforts by the State of Qatar, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the Republic of Turkey, and the United States of America, which led to the signing of the Gaza ceasefire agreement during the summit. Madam President, against this backdrop of the foregoing positive developments, the OIC Group looks forward to a favorable outcome of the Council's debate today. Accordingly, we call on the Council to support and sustain the current momentum towards the restoration of a durable peace in Gaza and the entire occupied Palestinian territory, including concrete efforts to bring an end to Israel's illegal occupation. We call on this distinguished Council to take adequate measures towards contributing to the successful implementation of the ceasefire and subsequent phases with a view to ensuring the restoration of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people in accordance with international law and the declared wishes and decades-long consensus of the international community. In this regard, we call on the Council to consider the extant UNGA resolution ES10/24 of 18 September 2024, the ICJ advisory opinion of 19 of July 2024, and the New York Declaration on the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution adopted on 30th of July this year as positive evidences of the universal endorsement of the peaceful settlement of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict on the basis of international law, the foundation of any just and peaceful solution. Certainly, these legal texts represent a declaration of support for the Palestinian people's natural, historical and legal right of self-determination and the independence of their state with Al-Quds al-Sharif as its capital. In this regard, we call for the timely action of the Council on the admission of Palestine as a full-fledged member of the United Nations. We are inspired by the commitments endorsed by the overwhelming members of the UN General Assembly in the New York Declaration to hereby call on the Security Council to support a collective action to end the war in Gaza and to achieve a just, peaceful and lasting settlement of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This includes the recognition of the grave implications of the high human and material toll of the Middle East conflict for regional and international peace and security. We also echo the provision of the New York Declaration that only a political solution can deliver peace or security, not war, terror, or forced displacement. Furthermore, we endorse the salient commitment in the New York Declaration on the imperative of entrusting the Palestinian Authority solely with all matters relating to governance, law enforcement, and security access to all Palestinian territory, along with international support, while we welcome the one state, one government, one law, one gun policy of the Palestinian Authority. To this end, we reaffirm the recent resolution of the OIC Council of Foreign Ministers in its extraordinary conference held in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia on the 25th of August 2025, which rejected any calls, plans and policies aimed at displacing the Palestinian people, whether inside or outside Palestine, including the Gaza Strip, or changing the demographic composition thereof. We welcome the establishment of the Emergency Alliance for the Financial Sustainability of the Palestinian Authority, which aims to stabilize the financial situation of the Palestinian Authority and assure its ability to govern, provide for essential services, and maintain security. Accordingly, we seek the urgent implementation of the Arab OIC Reconstruction Plan to allow early recovery and reconstruction in the Gaza Strip, and we encourage all states, regional and international partners to participate in the Gaza Recovery and Reconstruction Conference to be held in Cairo. Madam President, in expressing our firm support for the unfolding positive and encouraging signals towards alleviation of the unbearable suffering borne by the Palestinian people and a successful implementation of the ceasefire agreement in its all phases, we urge the esteemed Council members to take cognizance of the very huge cost of the two-year war in Gaza in human and material terms. This is represented in the colossal loss of over 68,000 mostly civilian casualties, including hundreds or thousands of more wounded and the forced displacement of nearly the entire population, over 2 million people. In addition, the loss of over 1,700 medical and humanitarian personnel, as well as about 370 UNRWA staff and 270 journalists, has demonstrated the nature of the humanitarian tragedy attendant on the war in Gaza and elsewhere in the occupied Palestinian territory. This disastrous and unlawful situation demands our continuing urgent attention and all efforts to alleviate it and ensure a just and lasting solution. We thus reaffirm our sincere hope that the recent peace plan will usher in the much desired peace in Palestine and in the entire Middle East region. OIC stresses that establishing peace in the Middle East requires Israel's withdrawal from all occupied Arab territories, including the occupied Syrian Arab Golan, and the implementation of the relevant UN resolutions, most notably Security Council resolutions 242 of 1967 and 333 of 1973 and 497 of 1981, which reaffirmed that the acquisition of territory by force is admissible in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations and the principles of international law, and that the Israeli decision to impose its laws, jurisdiction and administration in the occupied Syrian Golan is null and void and without international legal effect. The OIC group condemns the Israeli incursions on the Syrian territory since 8th of December 2024 2024 in a flagrant violation of international law, UN Charter, and 1974 disengagement agreement, and calls on the Security Council to exert pressure on Israel to fully withdraw from all Syrian territories. The OIC group also condemns the repeated Israeli attacks against the Syrian Arab Republic, as they constitute a clear aggression against a sovereign state and a flagrant violation of the provisions of international law and the Charter of the United Nations. The OIC group condemns the daily Israeli violations of the cessation of hostilities announcement since its entry into force of November 27, 2024, by committing thousands of aerial and territorial violations against Lebanon and launching raids claiming the lives and wounding hundreds of victims. We also condemn the continued Israeli occupation of 5 border positions in southern Lebanon, in addition to the establishment of so-called buffer zones within the Lebanese territory, which prevents the full deployment of the Lebanese army south of the Litani River and the return of civilians to their lands, and restricts the freedom of movement of UNIFIL peacekeepers and deny their access to some of their border positions, which constitutes a flagrant violation of Lebanon's sovereignty and Resolution 1701 of 2006 and a blatant breach of the cessation of hostilities announcement. We call on the Security Council to assume its responsibilities and to enjoin Israel to withdraw from all Lebanese occupied territories immediately, fully, and unconditionally, and to release all Lebanese held captives by Israel. Madam President, now I'd like to make the following statement in my national capacity, if I may. Turkey welcomes the establishment of a ceasefire in Gaza and calls for the full and immediate implementation of the ceasefire agreement. Our foremost priority as the international community must be to preserve this long overdue and hard-achieved ceasefire at all costs. It is imperative to prevent ceasefire violations and settler violence in the West Bank. Attacks and destabilizing policies towards Lebanon, Syria, and the broader region must stop. As underscored in the Trump Declaration for enduring peace and prosperity, the Middle East cannot endure a persistent cycle of prolonged warfare. Disputes must be solved through diplomatic engagement and negotiation, not through force. Our second priority must be to ensure the unhindered delivery of humanitarian assistance to Gaza and to initiate reconstruction efforts without further delay, in close coordination with the United Nations and its relevant agencies, including UNRWA. In this regard, Turkey dispatched its humanitarian aid ship carrying food to El Arish on 14th of October. We will continue to provide substantial humanitarian assistance to Gaza in the period ahead and stand ready to contribute to reconstruction efforts in close cooperation with the international community. We welcome the ICJ advisory opinion that was announced yesterday on Israel's obligation regarding the occupied Palestinian territory, which reaffirms Israel's non-compliance with international law. Turkey contributed to the proceedings through written and oral submissions and will continue to support efforts towards the effective implementation of international law and the restoration of justice. Third, it's essential to define and operationalize the arrangements for the day after as underlined in the ceasefire agreement, including an international stabilization force and the creation of a credible political horizon in coordination with the Palestinian Authority and the Palestinian people. Madam President, lasting peace in the Middle East can only be achieved through a political solution based on the two-state vision and pre-1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as the capital of an independent, sovereign, and geographically contiguous state of Palestine. We welcome the recent recognitions of the State of Palestine announced during the high-level international conference on the two-state solution held on the 22nd September. We hope that this development, together with the momentum generated by the ceasefire negotiations, will contribute to the realization of the two-state solution in the period ahead. Turkey reaffirms its commitment to actively contribute and extend its support throughout the implementation phases of the ceasefire agreement. We will continue to support and mobilize all efforts towards the attainment of a lasting peace in the Middle East. I thank you, Madam President.